Yeah, thank you so much, Phil and Marcia and everyone for just being here. It's such a ludicrous time to be thinking about poetry, and yet it is the most appropriate time to be thinking about poetry. You know, when we're on the fringes of sanity and just thinking, "Gosh, what are we hearing?" And poetry is just cleanses the palate for us, lets us rethink about language and remind us that it doesn't have to be a weapon all the freaking time. You know, it doesn't have to harm people. And so really excited to be here, albeit virtually, to be sharing the word with you. I know Phil and Marsha were saying it's so much funner in person, and I wish I was there in Ventura County or close by hearing you all. So here's to that fateful day, hopefully sooner rather than later. I'm excited. I'm definitely going to make my rounds next year. And so, as Phil said, I'm going to be reading some poems from Gentrification tonight. Some background about the book and its concept, which might be helpful. It's organized like a syllabus because a lot of my time has been spent away from my family through higher education, and I'm the first in my family to go to college. And so the poems kind of navigate higher educational spaces vis-a-vis being a first generation of my family, coming from Mexican immigrants, and learning the English language and just what it's like to kind of go through that experience, particularly in a place like East Palo Alto, of which I'm running for office, and working class environment, black, brown folks, and just sort of how does one make home, right? So on that note, my first poem for tonight is called "The Last Day My Father Spent in Mexico." At 18, Apa cleans tables at Hyatt restaurant with imported sweat. He smuggles his wife and two children into Sunday brunch, where I've learned with the nuns' piety to stop calling him Papa in public. Papa bites his tongue under every "pick it up" and "excuse me, senor," grunted amidst clinking silverware. He sees the chalk of clients' white fingers snapping the outline of EPA crime scenes, the underside of an aguacate which bears the same skin as un cuerno de chivo, the autodefensas and carteles still patrolling the plazas, while on this side of North America, he sees the avocado is trending, hollowed out so white people can mine its green gold to make caramel lattes. This morning, Apa pours greasy caldo over a cazuela of chiles rellenos. We huddle over the bonfires of a breakfast in a small apartment with three plastic chairs, but six different pictures of the Virgin Mary. My grandfather naps. His wife tugs at una gelatina. As he struggles to peel off the pegamento, she sighs, "Eres el único hijo que aún nos manda dinero." At 52, Papa lowers a sack of maseca as a doorstop so his parents can shuffle their feet across the carpet and open the door so they can cross the threshold and properly despedirse de él. So a lot of me just sort of navigating higher education has been reading the canon, right, quote unquote, and learning, reading Joshua Steinbeck and Scarlet Letter and all of these sort of classic high school texts, and sort of trying to claim them as something I can really think about as my own personal story. I remember vividly when we were reading for creative writing class in my senior year of high school, we were reading Tim O'Brien's The Things They Carried, and this wonderful story and gripping tale about the litany. It's like the short story is basically a poem in disguise, this list poem of all the things that these soldiers in Vietnam are carrying, and it's so enormous and wonderful and epic and devastating. And I thought, well, what are the things that my community carries when they cross and they sort of have their own war, so to speak, which is crossing the border or making home, whatever violence that one experiences in their journey. So this poem is called Las Chacharas They Carried. And chacharas is sort of Spanish, Mexican slang in particular, for a kind of wear or product or sort of thing tossed over there that you wouldn't really think about. Kind of not seen as important, but sort of just hanging out there. Things you'd see in a flea market, I guess I should say. Las chacharas they carried. Señora, quede clara. One, discount shaving cream. Two, tortillas wrapped in black plastic bags. 3. The telephone number of USCIS. 4. Vapor rub, which in Spanish translates to comprehensive health care. 5. My child's nosebleed. What's the intention of your visit? 6. My son who stirs awake as the night quill's starting to wear off. 7. Father's sombrero that I promised to never take off the wall. If I search your vehicle, will I find anything? 8. Soap camouflaged as sea salt. 9. La madrugada whose border town haze stains mother's stress. 10. An analog TV set to plop my chubby brown hijo in front of Sesame Street. Ma'am, please step outside. And here are the chacharas that I carried. It has an epigraph. The customs agent switched his nightstick for a number 2 pencil and asked at workshop, I'm not sure what this word means here. Does anyone know? Las chacharas I carried, translated from the Mexican. 1. A cutting board to butcher my tongue and hope that bleeding is a universal language. 2. A bilingual dictionary kept abreast like the Han family's pocket constitution. 3. The English word for the Aztec adage, it takes 3 seconds to Google my shit. 4. A book of poems to hand my father, the edges smeared in molcajete and refried beans. 5. My tears as Appa strains his chords to read my hymns for him. 6. An ink made of his cook orders. 7. His baby blue dress shirt to wear at my MFA thesis committee. 8. The declaration. It'll be in ambos idiomas. 9. A voice recorder to replay his voice in the hollow walls of my Newark apartment until I finish singing the Barrio Beatitudes. 10. His question. Hijo, ¿cuándo vas a regresar? How are folks doing? Good? Okay, great. Let's move right along. So, again, I seriously think this book is really about reshaping canon and understanding. Not, there are 2 kind of smugglings that happen in my genealogy. There is the smuggling of my parents that go into the United States and make home. And then there is the smuggling of me being a first generation college student and making sense of and claiming story and literature and American letters and intervening and injecting them with my stories and our narratives. And so this idea of canonize, that word is really interesting for me because on the one hand, it could mean to put something to literature, but on the other hand, it could also mean in religious sense to render sacred, to make someone into a saint. And oftentimes it's done posthumously. And so I thought about what if the people that I grew up with and the classmates that I had growing up, despite all the narratives and things that they had told against them, who they were, the troublemakers or their gangbangers, what if they were actually seen as sacred through the lens of literature? So this poem is called The Disciples of San Mateo County, California. And God said to Juventino, perform ablution over the bathroom sink. Press the cold metal with novice palms. Stretch out your double white tee, the cotton bullet-proof vest, where upon stepping in the schoolyard, you'll face juvenile punches. Brace the iron gates with knockoff Cortezes. Cuff your sagging dickies by the ankles. Saunter to the cracked voices of boys who laugh without a tag for their torsos. Unzip your brother's fur jacket and take father's flask. Drink from his patron. Shadow box the heavy gavel swings with swigs of your own. Cleanse yourself in liquor's kerosene. Let flammable spirits purge all nerves. To be an acolyte, embalmed in hair gel, worshipping the altars cordoned off in caution tape is sainthood. Staying on this idea of religious forms, then I started thinking about art, and I started to become fascinated with the idea of triptychs and this idea of these 3-piece iconographies of Christ, and how in the Catholic tradition, especially, in Mexico, it's so dominant. This idea of God and this idea of worship and this idea of the Virgin Mary, and I've become so this idea of sacralizing my community and making it deemed as holy, however sacrilegious that may seem, but I became really fascinated with that. And the idea of ruins, right? When something is deemed ruin, not in a kind of like looking at Rome or BC, but and the idea of ruin in the sense of gentrification, like piling a thing so that you no longer see it's there and it's deemed old. Kind of like the history of formation of I grew up, which is Palo Alto, which used to be an inner city, and now it's Amazon, and all these different companies have kind of come and they've seen, oh, we can make business here. How does that affect people who once inhabited this place? So this poem is called Triptych of the Adobe Kata Army. And of course, I'm thinking of the Emperor's army, the Terracotta Army. So Triptych of the Adobe Kata Army. The time is circa 2000 AD, East Palo Alto. It's in 3 parts. So I'll go like this every time I separate this section. My fingers are desperate to unearth the ruins of my countrymen, only to find a Tesla on the 2nd floor of our apartments, now a parking garage. The Amazon logo smirks above me like a biblical cloud. Out here, hooded saints toward the covenant of earthly silence, passed out zigzag leaflets to preach the gospel of skin. Whirling dervishes in long white tees bum rushed me at a bautizo, pressed against my lips a cholo's chalice. My chest flushed at watching boys bronze into adobe kata. A driveway floodlight, the barrio's moon casted their bodies as they placed bets against the armors they carried. A fist tucked inside a hoodie, his knuckles spelling the names of ex-lovers, each letter tatted with a paper clip, cocked belt buckle, whose colors shout to the block who he fucks with, until asphalt swallows him again and Maria's now mourn Jesus outside of sagging fence wreathed his chain link with lit candles, cardboard signs saying we miss you, streamers without the heated balloon that promised flight. Consider the clothesline as a bandolier, slung over ruined soldiers whose uniforms still cling onto apartment balconies, quienes se dieron sus tierras to raise the wrinkled flags of blouses and neon vests. Consider this Aztec sacrifice. A father offers an empire his daily flesh, kneels on the melted tar of its tongue, winces at the body turned legal tender, all to nurse the newborn with this vision, una vida mejor. So as you move further down in the collection, it's broken up in sections. As I mentioned, it's organized like a syllabus. And so the first section gives a sort of course description. It gives you, you take a class, why are we here? Then it gives you the text that you're working with, the learning goals. So each section is organized like this. And in this section that I'll be reading, I don't know if there are any high school teachers. I know Phil teaches high school. There's AP US history, of course. And in one of the conceits or one of the examinations for AP US history is what's called the DBQ, a document-based question. You're given primary sources, whether it's World War II or Vietnam, and by leaders, and then you're supposed to craft an essay based on those primary sources. And so, again, the whole notion of the book is to study the speaker's trajectory. And so the primary sources are going to be his own memories or historical memories. And it makes more sense once you read it. But this, so I'm going to read you one of the sources of this section. And the poem is titled ESL. After Roger Rivas, Simothea Exigua. The tongue as a debut ribbon to slice and applaud, to lose consciousness and wake up indoors. When the smell of cooked chicken creeps into your nose and teeth remember what it means to chew, to make the mouth a gully for the first pale stranger who cradles your head and says, drink. When the glistening neck of his canteen prods your pink lips and words you never heard raid in. When the names of the rooms dead fill your throat and bedloads of migrants cover their children's mouths each time they knock. When loose threads of tongue fall on your stubby fingers, and soon you unravel how you arrived here, to mourn the Jordans hung on telephone wires, the muscle memories of a coupe that stopped mid-street, a tinted face lowers the glass curtain, and suddenly your pickup game's one man short. To still hear his jump shot when the court chuckled as his elbows locked in, and 21's just when the pale stranger invites his neighbors, how they marvel at your mouth's archaeology, when wives paw its rot and decide to form book clubs around grief, when a smile lurks in the corner of your jaw as they proclaim you their latest myth. I'm gonna have time for one more poem, and it's sort of funny. It's it's everything happens. You know, the stars align for some reason, right? So I'm running for office as I sort of was telling folks earlier for East Palo Alto, and the slogan I have is a bridge for success. And I only say that because there's a conceit of the bridge in this poem, and I realized that. So um, I guess I could only say this really is an homage to my family and how, yeah, I have trouble summarizing the poem, so maybe I'll just get to it. This last poem is called First Time I Was Called to Spick. My mother pushes a stroller above the freeway, bar rayado like the lottos that clog sewers. Inside the porta cuna, un chango munches on the last bits of a taco. Corn flaps, dangling and sauced, mock the pains of hunger in her stomach. The exhaust of red taillights, white hoods, and blue cielo will match the American flag knitted on his shirt. The other Mexican boys drag each other's mochilas, starched shirts cologne by papa's sweat. Ama wipes chile from my cheek and kneels to me por la última vez. My mother pushes a stroller above the freeway, so I march into Palo Alto, bearing our only oros of a golden cross and golden arch. Realtors on their second wind kept the rest here. In houses we only enter with hard hats. As Miss G places us in groups of 4 to 5, I felt her, the freckles on Avery's back. I pawed its tawny pebbles, but my hands slipped in the mud of her gleeful burst. I wish I had your tan. My mother pushes a stroller above the freeway, so Mr. Mata will slap me on the shoulders and shout in a Chilean mantra, Tony, I want you to go because history will speak of you. Six of us fly to the minority conference in San Diego, and for the first time, I feel beautiful by the sea of brown faces that shores my grin. By the boardwalk, I split a set of fries with the date I met at the lunchtime talk. We hide our skin in the border town's dusk until she stops and asks me to pick the palm tree where she'll crop her breath under my shirt. The warm gusts cool my neck like a cobija freshly taken out la secadora. With hands flecked, I glide back to the hotel. A man stands outside a bar. Bubbles of Corona foam from his mouth. He spurs. Got some Taco Bell, huh? I volley back. Nah, I think you bugging. It's Jack in the Box. With that, I've left the sacred covenant of not talking back. He hisses as I turn spick. So a leash against my neck can pull me back to the curb and teach my children and my children's children and my children's children's children to spend their lives filling refreshment, valeting his car at a finger snap. Mr. Mata charges for him, held back by the other chaperones, the peach fuzz boys and her straightened girls, name tags still pinned. They circle me and ask, "Hey Tony, are you okay?" The tingling comezón from swimming in mi ser is drained. Siento encuadrado, stinging from the cudgels that have chased me. At that moment, I want to grab my phone and ask my mother, how many times did you have to that bridge? Thank you.